have a proclamation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our regular meeting of the Tiverton Town Council on Monday, March 2nd, and we will open the meeting with a salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The town clerk, would you kindly call the roll, please?
Councilor Edwards.
Here.
Councilor Ruda. Present. Councilor Medeiros.
Here.
Councilor Durfee.
Here.
Councilor Carroll.
Here.
Councilor Costa.
Yeah.
And Councilor Bowen.
Here.
All present.
Thank you very much. And we have before us a request that the Tiverton Garden Club requests that the council proclaim the week of Saturday, April 21st through Sunday, April 29th as Tiverton Cleanup Week. Sign-up sheets are available at Coffee Roasters, Town Hall, Essex Public Library. Paper trash bags will be provided by RIDEM, will be available at the Essex Public Library, and awards will be presented to poster contest winners from grades 1 through 4 at the Town Hall at 10 o'clock on April 28th. Make every day Earth Day is this year's theme. So, Mr. Bowen, I'll entertain a motion from you.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Is anybody here from the Garden Club?
We're going to read the
Would you like
proclamation.
to just add anything to that?
No, I just appreciate your support and hope everyone will get out and do their part to clean up our town.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to have to read the proclamation.
Now, on our agenda, we have the appointments to boards and commissions attached amendment before the approval of the consent agenda. But why don't we read the consent agenda first, and then we'll move to boards and commissions.
Tonight's consent agenda consists of the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 26, 2007. Receipt of minutes from the following boards and commissions: Harbor Commission, Substance Abuse Task Force, Wastewater Management, Arts Commission, Library Board of Trustees, and the Stonebridge Task Force. Correspondence received from the town of Westerly regarding resolution relative to non-renewal of insurance for coastal properties. Received from the city of Newport, Mayor Wallach, regarding invitation to annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. Received from town of Burrillville regarding resolution supporting legislation requiring utilities to pay for relocation of infrastructure. Received from town of Burrillville regarding resolution supporting legislation amendments to Chapter 98 Energy Facility. Received from town of Burrillville regarding resolution supporting amendments to 16744 School Housing Project Cost. Tax Assessors Board of Reviews request approval of abatements. Town Administrator requests release of carry-forward funds in account 99-219-266 Health Insurance to current fiscal year account 219-266 Health Insurance for $67,917.56. Town Administrator requests release of carry-forward funds in account 99-450-457 Rubbish Recycling to current fiscal year account 450-457 Rubbish for $6,227.38.
Are there any withdrawals from that consent agenda?
Madam President, I'd like to have C3A and B removed.
See?
They are so removed. With those exceptions, is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Mr. Edwards?
On the resolution from Town of Westerly, I just want to know if we as a town were going to do anything with this particular thing other than pass it on. And the issue of coastal insurance, or actually the reduction in insurance companies carrying Rhode Islanders is grossly coming upon us. I'm sure many of us have already had our insurance either canceled or are in imminent danger of having it canceled, just due to our proximity to the water. I thought we might want to join Westerly in their resolution to get this issue moved.
Do you wish to make a motion?
I would make a motion, so, Madam President.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion of Mr. Edwards' motion? All those in favor of Mr. Edwards' motion? Okay. And the next one.
I just wanted to know with whom I will be walking from this council. I'm considering that Tiverton, I don't believe Tiverton very often fields members to walk in the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
So do we have any volunteers from the audience who would like to walk with Mr. Edwards? Ms. Black, you know,
I have to babysit my children are walking.
Madam President,
yes?
I think Mr. Edwards is well qualified to represent this town in the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
I think that is very appropriate comment, Mr. Costa.
Thank you, Madam President.
So I will entertain a motion from other than Mr. Edwards that he represent the town of Tiverton at the St. Patrick's Day.
So moved, so moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe,
Carry
Madam
a big
President, the council vice president would loan him his convertible to ride in.
Not a chance.
I have a better chance of the entire council walking than I do of that.
Well, I thought I'd give it a try.
Which one you want?
Okay, now let us move to appointments. The town clerk very nicely put together for us the terms of all existing members on commissions, as well as a list of all candidates for the boards and commissions. So the first position to be filled is the second alternate position on the zoning board of review, for which there were 3 candidates: Paul Hill, Raymond LaFazia, and Louis Ledoux.
Madam President, I'd make a motion before that we entertain all the candidates of which there is no opposition, so we can go right through them and get those people appointed to the various boards that they've applied for. And come back to the zoning and planning issues.
I think that's a very good idea. The only issue on that, Mr. Edwards, is the terms that these people will fill. This one. And maybe what we could do is, where there is just one candidate,
Fill the open term.
Excuse me, Madam President.
yeah,
This has been set so that any vacant position will only go until June 30th of 2007. And what I was hoping, so if it was an unexpired term, then it's going to go beyond that time. If not, it's going to, actually, you're appointing just for these few months. But then what my hope was that in June, we would bring forward the ones that you just appoint tonight, so that they don't have to go through the re-interview type process, and then we would automatically put them to the next expiration date on each term.
okay. Well, I think that is
gonna have a whole
fine.
batch
But, I think we could appoint, for example, Peter Core, represent Sherry Faso Olf, To the recycling, Robert Stringer to the conservation, the Bixby to open space, tree warden, Gordon Poe, if that be to the Recreation Commission. And on the Economic Development and Arts Commission, we just need to fill in the terms of Mr. Bowen, Gilbert, and Mr. Poe is also there. So we have a decision to make.
Mr. Paul will be very busy.
Yes. But let's do what we can with that motion. One is Peter Core, Sherry Faso, Robert Stringer, just as I said. So why don't we act upon those with your first motion? Okay, so that would be the appointments to the redevelopment agency, the recycling committee, conservation, open space committee, tree warden, and then we'll stop. So, Mr. Edwards, I presume that is your motion?
That is my
those-
motion, Madam President.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of Mr. Edwards' motion, raise your right hand. Okay. Now, let's just go to economic development. And just assign terms for those folks. We have 4 unexpired terms. 2 terms, 4 positions are available, 2 expiring in 6/30/2010, 2 expiring 2008. So, we could take the first 2 and
Make a motion to appoint Peter Brown and
Bowen.
Peter Bowen and Stephen Gilbert to the appointments, positions to expire in 6/30/2010.
is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries.
And I make a motion to appoint Gordon Poe to the position expiring in 2008.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Now, Mr. Poe has also applied to the Recreation Commission.
I'm not sure if he's...
Actually applied as
He
a
applied for
preference.
3, and they had
Okay,
preferences,
planning,
so I'm not sure if he's
recreation,
interested in
economic.
serving on 3 different
Okay.
commissions.
So we may have to clarify.
I will speak with him on which one he chooses.
Coming now to the Art Commission. And we have 2 vacancies
Two people.
And 2 candidates.
and 2 candidates, 2 positions.
Are there any
available.
candidates here from the Art Commission?
We saw one last week.
I just wonder if there were, because of the...
Motion to appoint Mary Saxon and Ann Parker.
Second.
what are the
2
three?
positions expiring in 6/30/2008.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yes, second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, so we're going to clarify Recreation Commission. Now let's move back to Zoning Board of Review.
Make a motion to appoint Louis Ledoux to fill the expired term.
As a second alternate.
And
Is,
that is until June 30th of 2007.
That's an annual appointment.
Wait, it'll come up again.
Yeah, every year it comes up.
Yeah.
Madam President,
yes,
I would nominate Raymond LaFazia for that position.
okay,
I would second that.
okay. Any other nominations? All those, I'm just going to do this in order. All those in favor of Mr. LaFazia, raise your right hand, please. 1,
2, 3, 4.
I believe the LaFazia appointment carries. Okay, all right, now we will come to the planning board.
Madam President, I would nominate Peter Moniz for one of those two positions.
Okay,
Mr. President, I'd like to place the name of Cynthia Nebergall with nomination.
Madam President, I would add Frederick Statura.
are there any other nominations? I will take these in order. All those in favor of Peter Moniz, raise your right hand. 2. That nomination will fail. All those in favor of Cynthia Nebergall, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the nominee.
It's 2 openings.
There's still one more.
Okay, I'm sorry, you're right. All those in favor of Fred Statura, raise your right hand. That is also a nominee. So the 2 nominees are Cynthia Nebergall and Fred Statura. Okay. Moving on to a public hearing. I will open the public hearing for the CDBG program, and this is the application for a Small Cities Community Development Block Grant, which is shepherded usually by Mr. Ostegay. Oh, yes, Mr. Ostegay. How can I mispronounce your name?
Madam President, I have a letter here from Mr. Ostagat who was given me just a few minutes ago that's going to address my attention in regards to this. And I think Mr. Ostagat also has some not so good news for us this year, that we have been shifted to another level, which means we are our eligibility amount of money has dropped.
Let me at least open the public hearing, so, all right, I've opened the public hearing.
Okay, thank you very much. Good to see you. This is the first of 2 public hearings regarding the town's application for community development block grant funds. It's an opportunity for the public to comment on suggestions, and as Mr. Steckman has indicated, there is some bad news this year. In the past, the town has been classified as a community with a higher need than it has this year, and as a result, your maximum application can be $250,000, where in the past, you've been eligible to apply up to $400,000. There's a series of evaluation criteria the state looks at: population, income levels, the housing stock, economic indicators, per capita income, poverty level, and property values in the community. And this year, as a result of various shiftings, many have had to do with individual communities' housing plans and how they're progressing in those. The town of Tiverton dropped about 4 positions and is now in the $250,000 category, which is the lowest category in terms of maximum funds. It could be with some of the projects on the board for affordable housing projects that the town could move up in future years and back into the $400,000 category. But for this year, the maximum application the town can seek is $250,000. The town can apply for funding for provision of for employment opportunities for low and moderate income families, can provide for housing opportunities for low and moderate income families, and it can provide for community facilities and services which principally serve low and moderate income families. In the past, the town has applied for funding for particularly, we've been very successful in the past getting money for the North Tiverton area, where we've extended sewer lines, upgraded streets and sidewalks, a variety of different improvements in that North Tiverton neighborhood. Received money for the local CAP agency for the former health facility, which is now a Head Start facility, the Women's Resource Center, different services available through them, the Community Housing Resource Board, the church community housing programs for home ownership and home repair programs, and development activities around housing. We've also received funding for handicap access in various town facilities and funding for the community center in the past. This year, I've submitted a letter requesting some suggestions to the town administrator, as mentioned before, which again includes primarily the big ticket item is usually North Tiverton for extending sewer lines and other improvements in that neighborhood. I'm also requesting that we seek $200,000, which I would point out for development activities, for housing development, you can actually request an amount over and above the cap. And we might explore that a little bit more in terms of the relationship with the Bourne Mill project and the town's interest in sewers there, that we may have an angle to potentially increase the request for that item as well. We're also requesting funds for the Community Housing Resource Board or the Housing Hotline, which provides fair housing advocacy for persons who need housing. This is one of the requirements of your community development program, that you actually do some advocacy around fair housing. We're asking for $3,000 for the Community Housing, the Community Housing Land Trust of Rhode Island, which provides technical assistance to towns and assists with monitoring affordable housing is developed. We're requesting $25,000 for church community to continue to provide the programs and services that we have in the past. That's our request, and I believe there may be some other folks here to make.
Is there anybody who wishes to be heard on this matter? Yes.
Good evening, Susan Skank from East Bay Community Action Program. I want to start by thanking you for your past support for our agency through the Community Development Block Grant Fund. As you may be aware, we are doing significant improvements to our facility at 1048 Stafford Road, and we now have 18 children in a permanent preschool classroom there through our Head Start program. And we continue to offer out of that facility social services, heating and energy assistance, the Women, Infants, and Children's program, and as you may be aware, Stopover Services is now a program of New Visions. We did merge with that agency in June, so they are able to actually see families in our facility now at 1048 Stafford Road. Last year, both Tiverton and Little Compton did support us, each community $11,000 towards the improvement project. We're back again this year to ask for continued support. We need to do just a few more things to complete that renovation, and one is the second layer of pavement on the parking lot, and there are a few other items that we want to attend to, landscaping, and one other, there's a gate that's needed on the property as well. So we would be asking Tiverton and Little Compton for no more than $12,000 each, for a total of $24,000 between each, total for each of the two communities. Total of $24,000, $12,000 for each community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard on this matter?
I believe there was one other request that came from the Datsun Mobile Home
I
Park.
was just going to say that, ma'am. Datsun Estates is requesting an engineering study to develop a community septic system. I believe the amount that they're going to be seeking is $60,000 in a conversation I had with the president of the organization. I also would like to remind the council that last year, as you may recall, we tried to leverage a 3-year request for $750,000. We have not given up on that concept, especially with the Bourne Mill project seeming now to be more of a reality. But we did succeed in getting $100,000 last year in community development block grant monies out of that request. So we're still very hopeful on that.
Okay.
I just reminded this is the first of 2 hearings. There's another hearing we'll have before the application is due on May 11th, at which point typically the town administrator will present a list of recommendations on the application.
Well, we will certainly take all these under advisement. And if there are no other comments, I will close this public hearing and move on. Next is a matter of the, we sit as the Board of Licenses in connection with Cambio, Di Giovanni Enterprises, and that matter was continued, I believe, from our last hearing.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, I think one of the issues that we tried to address was, 2 weeks ago, we were asked to produce an engineering rendition of the site plan to show the distance to the nearest school was not less than 200 feet.
Yes.
I hope you have maybe a reduced copy of that in your possession right now. Okay.
Madam President?
Yes?
Yes, I reviewed the plan as submitted. It happens to be an older plan as far as that was done for DEM purposes, but it was done by a professional engineer, and it seems clear, it's not even close, that they are more than 200 feet from the premises to before they'd even reach the street, so that the 200-foot radius from the school is not an issue.
Okay, that was, I believe, the issue that was before us.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we issue the license. The license or licenses requested.
I second it, meeting all legal requirements.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Just a clarification, on the PDL license, we've already approved the other one.
That's the liquor.
Madam Chairman, I think, just for the record, it's technically an open public hearing. You might just inquire if there's anyone else who wants to speak.
Sure. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard on this matter? Let me just make sure there's nobody behind that post. There is none. And the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Anybody opposed?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very
Welcome
much.
to Tiverton.
Thank you.
Good luck over there.
We have some unfinished business. Councilor Ruda?
Yes, Madam President. I was contacted by Mrs. Judy Zarambi, who would like to address the council regarding raising funds for Bulgamarsh Park. Mrs. Zarambi?
Good evening, Madam President and Board. As you all know, my name is Judy Zarambi, and I live at 137 Lock Lane in Tiverton, Rhode Island. I'm new to your town. I've only been here for mere 4 years. It'll be in March. I lived in Hanover for 36 years, and we moved because the children got married, the dog died, and the house was too big, and we looked around and we picked a beautiful little town of Tiverton. I run a very large organization back in Massachusetts called the Community Friends for Human Services, and this is how it all started. One of my big providers for deer, Route 40, that does our camp certificates, happened to ask me if I would sit on a board for the Valerie Ornsky Foundation. This is a young lady that was murdered last summer. She was in a place of business where she worked, and one of the employees stabbed her 29 times in the ladies' room. She was 39 years old, just ready to get married, and instead of going to a wedding, we all went to a funeral. The young man is trying to keep her name alive in memory. So the first fundraiser we did was at the Hawthorne Country Club in Dartmouth, and this was in the food industry because she worked at the Old Country Buffet in Dartmouth, and we decided at that time a few scholarships would go out to the Johnson & Wales University, which we're still working with, and they did. I have a letter here I can show you. And then we decided that we took a ride one day and we saw a park that needed TLC, some very tending, loving care. It was in real bad disarray. It's your Mugabash Park. And we got the idea, actually, Mr. King got the idea, that he would go in and speak to your town administrator. I think his name was Mr. Stedman. He did that a few months ago, and then he elected me, after I said yes and I would sit on this board, that I would go in, speak to the town. Now, we would like to help rejuvenate this park. I know that the children of Tiverton have raised some money to do some work on the park. I know a lot of money needs to be raised. I believe it's almost $300,000. Don't quote me, but that's what I'm believing it is. Could be more. But we'd like to start off with the basketball courts to raise the money. Now, how this money would be raised is we're planning a golfing tournament, again, at the country club in Dartmouth, the Hawthorne Country Club, but that's in September. We would have many more fundraisers through the whole summer to raise money, and proceeding as the money comes in goes to a particular fund for your park. Of course, you would have all the contractors to fix the park. That's not in our department. Our department would only be into raising the money for rejuvenating this park. We only ask one small thing from you all. We want her name and her memory to be kept alive. The only way you can do that is you either have to have a plaque or you rename the park or something that would be honorable to her. I know when my own granddaughter died, when she was 3 years, 9 months, 10 days old, she went to a junior kindergarten school and she had picked up bacterial meningitis. We did a memorial park for the school where there's a beautiful big plaque and a garden, and it's called Jenny's Garden. And it's something to keep her name alive. So that's basically why I'm here, to help the town to raise money for this park. Have you all seen the park, how in disarray it is? Really, I'm sorry, it really needs some TLC.
Yes, well, you should be aware that we have received a grant from DM to begin refurbishing the Bulgamarsh Park, Bulgamarsh basketball courts.
Okay, I did not know that.
But I do know that additional money will be needed for to complete the TLC, certainly. So,
Levick, if you don't, can I give you an update where we are right now?
I would like to know, absolutely, thank you.
Because I know I spoke with Mr. King. First of all, working with Steve Ostagai on the Sandy Woods Farm, the gentleman who is doing the surveying work has agreed to, since he's putting in permanent markers, instead of us having to go up there and survey the park, since we'll work off of his markers, and he will lay out where everything is in the park, so we have an exact idea of where our land is and where it begins and ends. That's going to probably cost us about $1,000. We do have an $18,000 matching grant from DEM, which is for the basketball courts. But before the Recreation Commission wants to spend anything, they would like to get this master plan. They're going to be looking at an RFQ, RFP at their next meeting, which they'll refer to you to allow them to go out to hire a landscape architect to come up with the ideas and incorporate thoughts and improvements to the park, including what's been proposed there for a long time is the skateboard park, which there's about $30,000 or so that's been raised by the young people of Tiverton. This, as I said in a letter that I was sent to your attention, I don't know if you've gotten it yet.
No, I have not.
I sent it to the offices or the foundation's mailbox.
Oh, okay, that's why I didn't have it, okay.
This is really an apropos time that this is coming about, because now the concepts are coming together. Now we got to start raising the money, because there is a grant that'll be available to us in the next fiscal year that we'll have to apply for. But since Tiverton has not applied for one for a number of years, our eligibility goes up because of the interest, and that would be a $300,000 matching grant that we would match with $300,000 in monies and soft costs, whatever contributions of labor. between that and the basketball money, we'd be able to invest about $636,000 in that park, which would provide a lot of TLC to that park and really take it back to where it should be, because it is such a focal point on Boulder Marsh Road. So that is where the Recreation Commission is right now, and I know they're going to be meeting on this at their meeting next Tuesday night.
So then our help there would not be of service to you. Is that correct?
Oh, most definitely.
I think we're looking for whatever help we can receive.
I think that what's being said, it's more needed at this point in time, because in matching grants, you have to come up with a matching number.
okay.
So we would have to raise a considerable amount of money,
Oh,
you
good.
know, in order to be able to refurbish that park.
Okay.
Work with you, Glenn, maybe.
I would ask him to work the council is so agreeable to have him work with, ask Councilor Aruda to assist us and to work with the Recreation Commission also.
Okay. Then I'll wait to speak to you, and thank you very much for letting me address you
Oh,
this
thank you
evening.
very much.
And when I hear from you, then we'll be able to start to raise money for the park. We would like to get going at least the beginning of the summer. So I would like maybe to be notified at least before. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Robert, we have, the next item is a carryover item. I think we asked for a little discussion with regard to the computation of the prorated or supplemental bills that...
No, you got a budget transfer.
Oh. We have a budget transfer. Town administrator.
I am requesting that $9,000 be transferred from the zoning to the legal account. I did express to you in a confidential memo where those monies were, as advised by the the town solicitor, that how we individually spend that should be confidential.
Okay.
Motion to approve the transfer?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Mr. Robert?
I think she likes saying Robert.
Mr. Robert is here to speak to the issue that I could not speak to last time when we were talking about revenues and the issue of the Starwood's proration and the other proration numbers. So, and why we are where we are, which I think was a question that...
Yeah, why we're only like a third of the way through the revenue end of it, and we're more than two-thirds of the way through the year. I mean, it's a fairly large difference.
Okay, well, I'm not sure what numbers you're looking at as far as the prorated bills for 2006, but on my memo...
I think he's looking at what's actually come in on the revenue reports, which is different from your memo.
I can't address that then, because my office just bills out. We don't do the collection.
And who can answer the question?
Well, I think the question, and let's go back a little bit to last year at budgetary time when we were looking at revenue estimates. Everybody was struggling to figure out how much property sales would take place, and at a budget committee revenue hearing, it was elected to use a number, whether scientific or not, of $195,000. And what has happened is that the number was overly optimistic, and as the result of what is happening in the real estate market, it's a much lower number that has resulted than what was forecast almost a year ago. And I think, am I summing that up fairly well?
I think you are, but I'm not sure if that's the question Councilor Edwards has.
It's not, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No.
We billed out $110,000 in prorated bills to Starwood. If we've only collected 33% of that, I can't speak to that. It's just a matter of collections, whether or not people pay or not. I don't think there's a...
My question was more relative to the fact, are we going to be able to recoup the other two-thirds?
Sure.
Are we anticipating recouping it because we're...
It's a lien on the property.
Jay, it's not as bad as it is because he's telling you that they've already billed 110,000 of the 195. So the collection of that, at whatever the number was, is not what's already gone out. To date, the taxes levied due to new construction are as follows: $110,059, or 56% of the estimate for the Starwood development.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about that one, though. It was like $832,000, and we've only brought in like 200.
Oh, that number, that's a different number.
You're looking at the amount of taxes in the 200,000, which is the 200,000 that the town gets before the bond's paid. 600 and some thousand to the bond.
Yeah, we have, looks like we haven't recouped the other $7,000. We will.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, Dave, I think everybody should at least be aware of how the supplemental bills come to pass.
Okay.
Is that a fair, I mean, so that everybody will understand how this works?
Okay.
And just mechanically, how do you?
Mechanically, how prorated bills work is you have an assessment date, December 31st of any given year. If, let's use something really simple, you have a vacant lot. The assessment on that vacant lot is $150,000. If during the next year there is construction on that premise and a CO is issued, that triggers a prorated tax bill based on that CO date. So if halfway during the year they complete a house, the CO is issued on August 1st, we'll prorate the difference now of value from August 1st to the end of the year. And that is a simple formula. If once again, if the lot was $150,000, now it's a $350,000 parcel with the improvement, we'll prorate out the difference of $200,000 to the CO date of August 1st.
And that would cover the 5 months?
The 5 months, right. And by law, just to cover it entirely, it's either the CO date or the first use, which in my past experience, we've had, people build a house, live in it, and never ask for a CO. If we do find out that they're living in that house, we will issue the CO based upon the occupancy.
Okay. Any more? Go ahead.
Sounds like a buzz who's going to get on it.
It's clear as mud.
The revenue, the way we track our revenue, I don't understand it at all.
Are you talking about I think there's a number in there for $860,000, and it shows that $353 so far has been taken in. Is that in the revenue?
Yes, that's
all right.
precisely what I was looking at.
That number, talking with the Sue Convoy, and somehow got put in there years ago as somewhat of a summary of all of the various revenues taken in, whether it's under the clerk's office. That number really needs to be taken out of there and off that record, because there is no such account. So it's giving a false impression of revenue in that account. That's why I rearranged.
We projected like $800,000 against that account. We've actually received some $300,000 against it. I just want to know if we're going to actually get the rest of the $600,000.
Let me get a revenue report. I don't have one in front of me, and
I have it in front.
That's a
Revenue
budget.
by fund.
I mean, I looked at all of the large accounts. This was the one that seemed to be the most
Right.
outstanding.
Jay, let me explain it, at least
That's
as
not it.
I understand it. The 860 was almost a plug figure of no relevance at this point in our lives.
Okay.
That encompassed fees, fees coming into the town clerk's office, dog fines.
$800,000.
Well, Nancy's office collects $509,000 or $510,000. It would also be in there, if I recall, are the planning department fees, the fees for the building inspection office, and overall, When I gave you a budget summary the other day, if you look at that, a lot of that fee, all those fees are in there. It's just that it was a number plugged in that was easier for the citizens of the town to understand. These are all the miscellaneous revenues that we take in.
Just combined.
Just combined into that one number. And it shows up on the budget report, but if you notice where it shows on the far left-hand column where it says no revenue in it, and on the far right-hand column, it shows revenue in a variety of line items like liquor licenses, marriage licenses, municipal court fees, probate court fees. It's all in that one line item, but it's more broken out on the budget report that you see. And I've suggested to Sue, and I know I've talked with Jim a little bit, that we just need to take that number off of there and get it out of there. And maybe put an asterisk on at the financial town meeting, and somewhere in the back, some documentation on how that 860, or if it's $900,000, how it comes to be.
But it's not taxes. It is just general fees that are collected by various departments in the town, the permits and all that stuff.
But I think the question he was asking was if we're estimating 860, whatever the number was, and we're at that 300, are we anticipating that 860 will be reached?
We actually have collected more than that $860,000. It's just shown in other line items.
Okay.
And that's the confusing part of it.
So that 500 isn't missing, it's just in other places.
Right.
Maybe we could asterisk where they are, so I could...
Add them up and come
Look,
up
at
to
someplace else, it could have showed 50,000, but it's showing plus over 120% somewhere else.
$500,000
Right.
Yeah.
And
That's why that report there is breaking it down a little bit differently and hopefully a little easier.
it showed that we were hardly collecting anything on the
Yes.
860. But that, why the computer turned that out, I can't tell you. But then we received the subsequent revenue by fund report.
Okay.
Okay?
Totally confused now, but I'll let it slide.
Come on in and visit, we'll have a long conversation.
I'm sure I'll be even more confused after that.
You may have to come in and spend some time before the parade.
Yeah, I have a job that I actually have to go to, so.
Well, we could take the report and walk down.
But it is, I mean, it's, and what's made it even more confusing is that on the docket at the financial town meetings, you'll see this projected revenue of the town, 860, in just fees, without breaking them out. And hopefully, we're getting to a point where we're breaking them out. So,
I know it was confusing to me, it's obviously confusing to other people.
yes, it is. And we're slowly slugging our way so that we will have information that people can understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Okay, we have Mr. Dancero from Parmalee Poirier Associates. Would you like to address the council?
Yeah, where you would.
I'm going to sit here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, good evening. Like you said, my name is Paul Dancero. I'm a partner with the accounting firm of Parmalee Poirier Associates, and we were engaged to do the audit for the fiscal year ended 6/30/06. First of all, I'd like to thank the town of Tiverton for allowing us to be of service to them in the audit for this year. Secondly, I'd like to thank Glenn Steckman, Jim Amarantes, and Robin Reeser over at the school for helping us through the audit and providing the needed information for us to finish and issue the report and deliver it to the Auditor General. This was our first year here, so we all kind of learned some things about each other and about the way things are done in Tiverton, and also the way because different firms approach the audit in different ways, and so usually the first year is a kind of a learning process for both the town and for the firm. The report's a little different this year. I don't know if you went through the report and noticed any added information that was put in it this year, or anything like that. Now, I'm gonna go briefly through the audit, but obviously if you have questions, or if I get too long in what I'm saying, sometimes I do that, please stop me if I'm giving you too much information. First of all, I was very happy to see that the town went out and did a full valuation of their fixed assets for the financial statements. That was a qualification on your report last year, that the town didn't provide the fixed asset information, so the report wasn't complete. But this year it was provided, and we're very happy to see that. And that really had to do with the, I don't know if do you all have a copy of the report?
Yeah, could you give us the page that you're working with?
That's what I was just gonna say, because I had to make sure. Page 13. And page 13 is a statement. Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Page 13 is your statement of net assets, they call it. And really, this is a full-scale, full-blown balance sheet, just like a corporate presentation. Okay, and that really came about with the Government Accounting Standards Board issuance of GASB 34. And that said that you should now present all your liabilities on the balance sheet, all your fixed assets, all those types of assets and liabilities that the town shows, such as bonds payable, notes payable, things like that. Where in the prior presentations, that wasn't required, that was just more of a note in the back of the report. Okay, and now we have a full-blown presentation, and this is the first year that you are showing your fixed assets on the report. And when I mean fixed assets, I mean buildings, vehicles, even different types of softball fields, building improvements, those types of things. So those are now put on your balance sheet, and really the entry is, it creates an asset and it builds up equity in your bottom of the report here where it says net assets. So that was more of a plus, well, a total plus for the town, because now you're putting on an asset without really showing any type of liability for that, because your liabilities were presented for that. So in the first page, on page 13, you'll see your governmental funds and your business type funds. And your business type funds really have to do with your land acquisition fund and your cafeteria fund. And from what I can see, the water authority fund, which had very little in it, was closed out this year. So really your only two business type funds are land acquisition and your cafeteria fund. So this shows this page shows the balance sheet of the town in your governmental funds, and your governmental funds have to deal with your general fund, any types of special revenue funds that you get, like grants that you receive, like you were talking about your CDBG grants, those type of grants, those are all special revenue funds. If you get COPS More grants from the federal government, all the grants that the schools get, the title grants, all your aid grants, those are all called governmental funds, and those are all presented in that column. And like I said, your business type funds are your land acquisition and your school cafeteria. And business type funds are supposed to represent funds that will sustain themselves. They generate fees, all types of different revenues that don't require property taxes. Okay, a lot of your enterprise funds or business type funds are sewer funds, water funds, those types of funds that generate revenues because you're assessing, you're billing, and they don't rely on property taxes. And on page 14...
Before you go there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
On 13, the assets not being depreciated.
Okay, those would be land, mostly land, those types of things.
Mostly.
Assets that don't depreciate in value, like buildings do, like cars do, those types of assets. And also in there would be construction in progress. Like the schools right now, you're having a middle school built and renovations to the high school, things like that. those assets are not yet ready to be used, so they are not being depreciated at that time. Once the job is completed, then it moves out of construction in progress and is put into a fixed asset account, and now it starts to be depreciated. So that's like land always stays in there, but construction in progress sits in there until the job is completed.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to move on?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You have, under internal balances, a debit and a credit for $248,849 for both government activities and business type activities. Why is that?
Well, that happens when, because of the relationship between the business type activities and the governmental type activities, we're not netting them together, but we don't want to either gross up assets or gross up liabilities, because these are amounts that are owed to each other within the town's assets. So what you do is you net them out together, so they don't appear in the total column as a inflation of your assets or an inflation of your liabilities. So as you see how it carries across to the total column, you see how it comes out to zero?
Mm-hmm.
Because these are due from each other's funds. Excuse me. So you don't want to misrepresent an asset when there's not really an asset there.
Okay.
So that's how, I mean, it does look, in presentation-wise, it looks kind of funny because you got a negative number and you got a positive number, and they wipe themselves out. But there are even, and this is the net effect of what happens. Within, as we go to the old presentation, you'll see larger numbers there, but within the governmental funds, they wipe themselves out so that they don't even appear here.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. Mhm.
Yeah. And on page 14 is more like the profit and loss of the report. And within that presentation, it shows expenses, and then these really are the two statements that came about through GASB 34. What they're trying to do here is show expenses and then show how these departments sustain themselves or support themselves before they have to rely on property taxes. So you'll see in certain areas like public safety, they issue tickets, they generate fees to support that department. And I think within financial administration is the clerk's office. So now you're generating revenues through marriage licenses, dog licenses, all types of, I think your building permits are in there, all those types of fees that are generated by that department to offset the cost of running that department. And then it comes across all the way and then goes down, and you see how we have property taxes in there, state aid, unrestricted investment earnings. Now those amounts are the help support, or is the main amount that supports these activities. So, and this is basically the income statement on a full accrual basis when you have your assets on the system and your liabilities. Where when you pay a bond is no longer an expense, which you'll see in the next page, because when you pay a bond, you're looking basically at cash flow. You're saying, will I have the funds to pay that bond off? Where this presentation doesn't say, do you have the funds? Because when you're paying the bond, you're paying it off in principal on a balance sheet. You're not expensing that amount. You're paying off the liability. So that's how that report works. And then on page 15 and 16 is the old method on how it's more on a cash basis, this type of report. And this is the balance sheet for all the governmental funds. On here, you don't have the assets of the town, you don't have the liabilities of the town, except for simple things like accounts payable and those type of things. This is more, when you look at your revenues, you're looking at cash collected. You're not looking at what the assessment is. In the other presentation, if you assess $24 million, that's your revenue. It's just like a store selling something. You know, when you walk in and you have a sale, and I buy something from you for $100, that's income to you, that's revenue. But in this presentation, your revenue is what you collect. That's the difference in the revenue end of it. And that's the way you've always had it until GASB 34 came around. And this shows all the funds, the general fund, the school unrestricted fund, which is the school's general fund, the land closure fund, your school renovation fund, and on the next column is all other non-major governmental funds. Now, that, what I said before, were all your special revenue funds, the, like I said, the Cops More grants, the school grants, all your capital project funds.
Now, here we have licenses and permits. I'm gonna go back. For $1,794,000.
Mm-hmm.
What went into that?
There are many things. I mean, I don't have the exact items that we categorize in that group.
Yeah.
That would have to, we'd have to look in detail on what makes up that number. I mean, licenses and permits obviously are all
I know, it's,
from the clerk's office.
it's going from
It's a
860
slush
to...
fund.
Oh, that's building everything.
Yeah.
That's, well, Nancy, no, that's everything.
No, that's interesting, okay.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that and see exactly where it got categorized in that group,
Yeah.
and we do
Something
have
get
that detail.
categorized that, okay.
But,
That could be several different.
yeah, that's, I'm sure that's maybe 15 different line items.
Dog licenses, right?
Obviously, dog licenses,
Well, it's a higher figure than...
a lot of
Okay.
dogs in Tiverton.
Well, I mean, I think if you take a look, for instance, Nancy's office typically collects between $500,000 and $525,000 in revenue off the top of my head. The building department may collect about $250,000. Now, remember that we do pay out a portion of those fees to our other inspectors. Right there, you're at $750,000. If you look at probably the parking at Grinnell's Beach and some of these areas, that's another 25. Very quickly, it starts adding up to where you're at that, $1.7 million.
Well, you know the sheet you prepared on revenue? It doesn't really come to 1.7. And so that is, I was just curious, but there may be another category that from an accounting standpoint you do put in there. But it was,
Just so you know, those numbers that were
I
off of
know,
that
we're
sheet,
just as of.
as of the 6:30
Yep.
at the end, not monies that could be collected in the following fiscal year may need to be backed back in to show payments of bills and invoices.
Yeah, these are 2006 figures, and you're looking at 2007 revenue estimates.
It was just an interesting figure.
That's just the clerk's office.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then on page 16, you'll see that is your cash basis, basically profit and loss statement for the town's general fund and for the school and landfill and so on. For the year, the town, as you can see, had a net change in fund balance of $308,000. Now that reflects just the difference in collections and expenditures for the year. Okay, but a more telling report would be on your, I don't know, I'll jump around too much, but on page 55 is really your budget to actual comparison. And in that, on page 55, when you were doing the budget for this fiscal year, you determined that you were going to use fund balance in that period to balance your budget. Okay, originally it was $1.3 million that you said, okay, we're preparing the budget where we don't want to raise taxes, we don't want to do that at this time, so we're going to use fund balance to help balance the budget.
We use the term unrestricted surplus.
Unrestricted, very good.
Okay, just so that we, you know, use
Yeah.
the term general.
Yeah, so you decide to use your unrestricted surplus to balance the budget. So you basically were saying we're not going to say the bad word deficit, but you were projecting a negative number at that time, which is fine. Many towns do that. But you did better than projected because you were projecting if everything went as budget, you would use $1.3 million of unrestricted surplus, but you ended up only using $308,000 of it. So that was better than projected.
Now, our unrestricted surplus went from a year ago, $2.3 million to $2.9 million, as I recall, with this, your audit.
Yes.
Okay. Does that, what you just said, contribute to that?
Yes, because you were saying I was going to use $1.3 million of that original beginning balance of $2 million. So if everything went as budgeted, you would have used $1.3 million, and that number instead of 308 would be $1.3 million. But due to savings in expenditure-wise or additional revenues, it came out to 308, which was better than expected. So that's good. Okay, and it does change that $2.9 million does change because last year there was a reserve of $1.3 million in there. Okay, so whenever you reserve fund balance, you take away from unreserved fund balance. But this year, you're reserving $600,000 for the 2006-2007 budget.
For this current year?
For this current budget you're in. So we took $1.3 million out and put $600,000 in, so it released funds back to the unreserved by doing that. Okay, so that does help the unreserved fund balance. Okay, and as the rest of the report goes, it shows how your enterprise funds, which we mentioned before, the land acquisition, the cafeteria fund, did for the year. And also it shows your fiduciary funds, which is the police pension trust fund. Okay, just on page 21 and 22. I don't want to jump around too much, but...
No, it's okay.
And one thing that we look at when we do audit towns is the strength of, one of the biggest issues in towns all over the state now is their pension funds. Many communities are in serious trouble because they're so underfunded that they have to now issue some type of corrective action plan to the Auditor General on how they're going to fund this in future years. One thing that Tiverton doesn't have is that type of issue. Your police pension fund is the net pension obligation, which they call it, which is a calculation based on what is required to pay into the fund and what is funded is very good, and it's only $136,000 at this time. So that's very good compared to $40 million in other communities that I go to. Okay, so that's not an issue over here, and that's benefits the town in all different ways regarding going to bond. You get preferential rates regarding because of that, because you're not getting demands on your economic resources to fund that type of pension.
Did I read somewhere in this report that the school department functioned under a single entry system, and you recommend double entry bookkeeping or some such thing as that? Is the sole purpose for converting from single entry to double entry auditing? Is that the major purpose for implementing that kind of a change?
Well, it's in, if we want to get to that after, we put it in our management letter comments after, which we've made like 5 of them in here. But you're right. The main reason for that is it's a self-balancing type of entry, okay? If you get cash in, okay, what are you going to do? You're going to make an entry into your cash account, and you're going to debit that account, okay? And then you're going to credit some other account, which is probably a revenue account, okay? So now you have two entries, and it checks itself, because at the end, when you run your balance sheet, are you in balance, are you out of balance? And if you're out of
that's
balance, then that's a problem.
I knew that. You
Yeah.
just reminded me of it.
Yeah, so that's why you need a double entry
Yeah.
system. It allows you to balance yourself. And if you only make a single entry, how do you know that you're presenting information correctly?
Yeah. You have to go back to the original
Did we get
document,
a
which
copy
would be
of your
burdensome.
management report?
Did.
I hope so.
Did, I believe
Okay.
it's right in the front of.
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't get one, I don't think.
We may have been blinded by, we may have been blinded.
Behind the scoop thing, right there.
Right here?
Right under the first page. Like this is what, this first part.
And that's what you always want to do, because now
Management letter comments.
it's not just an accounting thing, it's a mechanical thing that you do that makes sure you're not doing an out-of-balance entry, or you're doing something that's not reconcilable. Okay.
Open this up, it's right here.
There's a,
If anybody doesn't have one, we'll get you a copy.
his looked like it was bound, and this is loose, so I didn't think they were the same thing. So apparently the same thing. All right.
Okay.
I made copies.
Is there anything else that you want to warn us about, or?
Well, I mean, the reports, hopefully, we gave you more information this year, and regarding, the report goes from detail in the back to summary in the front. So if you ever want to look at what America the Beautiful Fund did for this year, it's in the back of the report. So you can see how the grants are doing, and did that grant get fully spent, those types of things. Okay? And let's see. I don't know if you wanted to go with the management letter comments. It's they're just going over some of, like, reminding capital assets. We said we're very happy that the town made the initiative to go and collect all that data, and we hope that it'll continue where new assets that come on will be put on this system, and any disposals. If you remove a vehicle, then they'll be removed from the system, so this will stay up to date.
And just so you know, we have allocated money in the budget to maintain our working relationship with, I think it's CBiz, as I recall, the company who did the initial GASB 34 compliance plan last year.
Okay, thank you.
I did ask Mr. Dansereau, I told Mr. Dansereau that I think there's been some concern raised in the Budget Committee about the necessity of a finance officer, and I did ask him to speak to that to a degree, the importance for us to take that next step. So I would like at least let him be able to make some comment how much easier and preparation would be, and financial forecasting would be available to the council. And we would eliminate some of these other questions that have come up.
Continuing to come up?
Yes. You know.
Well, one thing I'd say, I know you've been going about looking at how you should go about doing that, and either having an appointed finance director or an elected finance director. One thing I do see in all the work that we've done, and we do many communities, large, small, all over, even in areas such as Jamestown, the only community that we see that does not have a full-time finance director is Exeter. And Exeter has a part-time treasurer who comes in probably maybe 20 hours a week to do the work. And he does have a full-time job also. But Exeter is a small community. They don't deal with a school system. Their budget is very small. So they don't, and they have the Exeter West Greenwich school system, and that is a totally separate audit. They just dedicate funds to that, and they, give money to that to that school system. So in other areas such as Gloucester, which is a smaller community also, they have a full-time appointed finance director. And it does allow for you to how do I say it, not react, but to maintain financial records in an up-to-date manner. Because when we, as you can see in the audit, we made some comments regarding trial balances that need to be prepared at the end of the year, reports that need to be furnished to the auditors. And we did have to do some work and assist the town in doing that for this year. But it should be obviously the responsibility of the town to have those reports ready and present them to the audit, because we're auditors basically. We're not bookkeepers. We don't come in and you can't rely upon us to put your books together. And we just come in, we audit what the town presents to us. So we do see finance directors in all the other communities that we deal with, and they're appointed finance directors, because they look upon the education of the person, and it allows you to look at that and say the education of the person, the qualifications that they do have. So, I mean, would I recommend that? Yes, I would. I would recommend that the town seriously look into that if you can.
This town, like every other, is struggling with the 5.25. You can understand that as an
I
auditor.
understand that, yeah.
Yes. It's immediately apparent for us, so.
Yeah. Many communities are just wondering how they can do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, well, I thank you for allowing us to be of service.
This is the first year of a 3-year audit contract that formerly Poyer does have with the town of Tiverton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Bourne Mill.
Good evening.
Good
Madam
evening.
President, my name is David Igliozzi. I'm the attorney for Bourne Mill LLC. But I've been working with Andy Tights, the town solicitor, about setting up just a meeting date for a public hearing on several petitions involving access to the Bourne Mill as part and parcel of a master plan approval that's been conditionally approved. So there's obviously many steps to go and a lot of actions to take, but the next step is really to go before the council at a public meeting on various actions involving Mill Street access, Bent Street access, and State Avenue access. And that's what the petitions really involve. Either a clarification on ownership with regard to an acceptance and abandonment petitions, the two offsetting petitions to clarify really a title issue on Mill Street. The other petition involves really the clarification of a street by use on State Avenue. And the third is really we've created a physical alteration permit to allow Bent Street to intersect and improve a portion, a very small portion of 8 Rod Way for the purposes of access. And I know 8 Rod Way is not a road that's utilized now, but it may be utilized in the future, and it's the whole purpose of the petition is to establish one, physical alteration for purposes of our project, and then secondly, to secure and protect the town in the event the town ever uses 8 Rod Way for its own purposes. Obviously, the public hearing is really the appropriate place to get into more detail. We're certainly here if you want more explanation, both with engineer and applicants, but we really, again, I'll ask the town solicitor's advice. We were really here just to set a date for public hearing, and hopefully the council would consider that.
Mr. Tights?
Yes, Madam President, the planning board's been working on this for a while. The planning board is very concerned that there be these 3 separate means of egress, that there be 3 separate ways to get in and out, which there was historically in the past when this was an operating mill. And we've been out there, there've been some technical review committee meetings out there on the site, walking it, involving the different people, including the fire chief and the public works director and the planner and so forth. It looks very complicated here with all the lists, but I think it will work procedurally when we get into it.
As Mr. Igliozzi indicated, if you have questions, I think between him and his experts or myself, we can discuss it now, or just to schedule a public hearing. And my suggestion was going to be, because we need the 21 days, because these involve ordinances, and also I think we do want some more feedback from Public Works and so forth. May 14th was the date I was going to suggest for the public hearing. I know the council's got a lot of stuff on its plate over the next month. Anyway, we're going to be having extra meetings, and so I was going to suggest May 14th for the public hearing.
Motion to go to public hearing
On the petitions?
on the petitions.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
While we're discussing this, at that public hearing, it would seem to me that we should have one survey showing all the changes.
Yes.
And that burden, it would seem to me, should be on the petitioner, so that
You can see it.
we can see it in its entirety.
I mean, I think they do. I mean, I think even if you wanted to, they've got large-scale stuff here now that does it. I requested actually that they have individual pieces so that you could have it reduced and provided to you in your packet.
Well, that's
Three
nice.
different ones, but we do.
That's nice, but
they do have the large ones
Yeah.
too. So, and they
I'm just
certainly
saying,
have
at
it.
the public hearing.
Yes.
So that we can sit out and take a look and say, this is the entire package.
Exactly.
It's nice to have these individual petitions. A motion has been made
2
to
days
set
before the financial.
the date of May 14th as the public hearing. All those,
It's 2 days prior to the financial town meeting.
It's okay. What's up?
I'm just, sometimes when we get close to a financial town meeting, there's a lot of preoccupation, and then this year, it doesn't seem to be much different, and maybe we should move it back to the 28th. That's 2 days before the financial town meeting.
Oh.
No, I just, you know how sometimes we get, I think when we get into this, we should be given that enough time, and I don't want to see us,
It's a good point.
yeah, it is a good point, because it's,
May 28th.
We might be busy renting the to the tent on the 14th.
No tents in Tiverton.
We might be busy booking the Venus.
May 28th is the holiday.
No, wait a minute. Our meeting is actually the 29th.
Is that the 29th?
Because of Memorial Day on the 28th.
Memorial Day. So change that motion to the 29th, May 29th.
Second.
all those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Webster, Street Committee.
Good evening. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Street Committee. As you know, the members are Mr. Boland, Mrs. Mello, Mrs. Ziva, and Mr. Hart, myself. There's a report that was previously sent to you to give you a status. Since then, the Street Committee did meet on February 27th, and we had discussion both amongst ourselves and with members of the public who attended and had an interest in the Shore Road.
Excuse me, but before you go too much further, Ms. Webster, could I just note for the record that I'm recusing myself from this matter?
So noted.
The Street Committee took 3 votes at the meeting. First is you do have an attached letter, a draft letter. The Street Committee recommends that residents should be mailed this letter. There are a number of affected property owners along what is the 1893 layout of 3-rod highway. There are some 9 structures, and perhaps, I believe, as many as 17 properties that lie
partially on this right-of-way. We recommend that the draft letter be reviewed and revised as deemed appropriate by Town Solicitor Peter Ruggiero, who has been acting as a consultant to us on this matter, and he's given us a lot of input. And we've provided not only the draft letter, but the list of abutters as we've, or affected property, not just abutters. I can't really say abutters here because some of it, their properties are actually lying on this right-of-way. So that's the first recommendation, that the letter be sent out. What this letter does is it encourages these property owners to petition the town council for an abandonment of the roadway. And you'll notice that the next bullet says that the street committee supports the abandonment of the 1893 layout of Three Rod Highway, AKA Shore Road, and recommends that the town council recognize the 1953 location of Shore Road as an incipiently dedicated roadway that provides alternate access. As a word of explanation, there is a 1893 layout of a roadway which begins at a point A and ends at a point B. There is a roadway that is now, everyone commonly knows as Shore Road, also begins at point A and ends at point B. However, they travel different paths in between those 2 points. That I guess, is the crux of the matter here. You will notice that that motion passed 3-1. One of the committee members did object to that recommendation. The third bullet is that the street committee requests that the town council refer the accepted plans from Commonwealth Land Surveyors Incorporated dated 12/20/06 and 12/23/06 to the planning board for consideration of recording. We feel that the plan should be recorded as reference in the town clerk's office for future reference, so that in another 50 years, the town is not going through the same process all over again. It's also, the last thing that should be noted is that during the public hearing, there were no objectors to the idea of abandonment of the roadway. However, it should be also noted that there will be certain legal and survey costs associated with the abandonment, both to the town and to the affected property owners. And with that, I believe that we have all of the committee members here, should they want to add anything, or if you have questions.
I just had one question. The term incipiently dedicated roadway that provides alternate access, does that have any legal or practical differences from just a regular accepted road? Or?
Yes, exactly. It's not. When the subdivision was deeded in 1948 and updated in 1953, those portions that are now roads were carved out, and they're actually land that's dedicated just for a road and is not really owned by anyone anymore. It's not accepted by the town, but the deeds do not give it to the people who own the property there. So that land is incipiently dedicated, which means that it is for the use of a road, for access, for passing by anyone. And that's what most of our road system, until accepted by the town, consists of.
But after it's accepted, will it just be like any other road?
It's not going to be accepted. It's all it's going to become is, it's going to become the recorded deed for the subdivision becomes what is actually physically now Shore Road.
So at the end of this process, it's not going to be accepted, it's just going to be the recognized access road for that area?
Yes.
To the subdivision that's there.
Yes, that is correct.
We don't have a copy of any deed in the package that you gave us.
Copy of a deed?
Yeah.
There is no deed for Shore Road, per se. There are a number of deeds for all of the properties.
A deed was recorded setting up the plat for all of High Hill. That's how Ronnie Street, William, and so forth.
A plan.
A plan was recorded,
Yes.
and that's on file in our books in the...
You know,
It-
it's not, doesn't make it a private road.
No.
It doesn't make it a town-accepted road.
I'll use the terminology that I believe that Peter Ruggiero used. And he said the 1953 plan created a public way that is privately owned.
A public way, privately owned.
It is open to public passage, but it is privately owned, but it has to remain open to public passage. And that was his description to us of that roadway.
That's to stop anybody from blocking it off.
Excuse me?
Is that in writing, that he said that, it wasn't just an oral?
That was a verbal report that he gave to us, and that's what I sent to the town council or actually to the town administrator in the February 8th, 2007 report.
Part of your draft letter.
Okay.
No, that was actually in a February 8th memo to the town administrator. And I believe that it also is in that draft letter because we used the verbiage out of the February 8th report to create the letter.
It's right in the middle of the third paragraph. That the 1953 plan created a public way that is privately owned.
The other thing to realize about this Shore Road as we know it today, it's a 40-foot wide right-of-way as opposed to a 49.5-foot right-of-way for the three-rod highway. Also, there are many infringements or encumbrances upon that 40-foot wide right-of-way. I think you've all heard before about the numerous no parking signs, flower pots, and other things that are located within the right-of-way that the town has, rocks, et cetera, that the town has been requested to remove, but we have tried to stay away from the area.
Okay.
I just have one question. Mr. Webster, there appears to me to be no other alternative. Are you aware of any alternative to accepting 1953?
Yep. Yeah, there is an alternative.
Short of
No.
having
The alternative is if you wish to retain the 1893 layout, is to then send notices to the homeowners that they have to move the structures that are in it. Okay.
Short of that, do you foresee any other alternative here?
I think another street committee member may want to speak to what his alternative is. I think it would be best if he spoke to that himself. Again, that was the rest of the committee did not recommend that. But there is that alternative if you'd like to hear from that member, in fairness.
I would say so.
Yeah, I just was curious.
Mr. Hart?
Mr. Hart, would you like to speak to that?
Before I get to that, in one of the deeds today, I was looking regarding the roads. There's a lot that's on the corner of Shore Road there, and in this deed in Book 90, page 858, regarding the roads, right to pass over and upon the roads as delineated on said plat for purposes of ingress and egress to and from the granted premises, and also the right to use the beach and the shore for boating and bathing in common with other owners of said plat. So this seems to suggest, in my opinion, that it's sort of the roads are there for the use of the people that live there, and it doesn't indicate that we are welcoming people from out of the area. On the other point, I felt that somehow we should try to make some kind of a relocation of the highway that was platted, or the highway that was three-rod way, to the present Shore Road, if possible, rather than abandoning and just relocate it. It would, of course, course, you would only have 40 feet instead of 49 feet, but accept that. And that was my feeling. I would give better suggestion if possible.
I spoke at a prior street committee meeting simply because I had read the Supreme Court decision, the 1893 decision, which gave an answer to Mr. Edwards' question. I believe it was Mr. Edwards, and the Supreme Court of Rhode Island gave the town of Tiverton two options with regards to those buildings that were in Three Rod Way, farther to the north. And that was either remove the buildings or substitute a road that had been used instead of the proprietor's layout of Three Rod Way. So there are options, and the most harsh and drastic, but nevertheless the Supreme Court of Rhode Island said this is an option for the town, is to remove the buildings from Three Rod Way, or the town may elect to substitute another way in its place. And so you do have that option. The only other point I'd make is you may want to consider this very carefully, because have an attorney look at this, a good title attorney, because I don't think abandonment is a remedy in this instance. And I'm not going to get into it. I'm not a Rhode Island attorney. So I simply make those 2 points. Abandonment may not be a remedy in this instance, and that you do have the option to substitute or to remove buildings, but you just don't have the option of abandoning and end it there. You have to substitute. That's a Supreme Court decision. Okay. So you may want to have somebody look at this a little further before you send out a letter and recommend abandonment.
Jim, the point there is, in 1893, there was no substitute road, and you would have had to provide another road.
No, there was a substitute.
In 1948, a subdivision was created and created a shore road, which is a substitute for the 1893 layout. So there is one in place there. So in discussing that with Peter and so forth, I believe Peter was of the agreement that you could abandon because you did not deny the access. In 1893, if you would not have provided an alternative access, you couldn't abandon what was created through that same type of a situation, and that was created through, deeded. It was a deeded roadway. It was incipiently dedicated back in the 1800s, and that's why it had to remain open in that court decision of 1893.
Well, the 1893 decision is essentially identical to this one, because people were using what we now know as High Hill Road instead of Three Rod Highway. And the Supreme Court said, again, you can either remove the buildings from Three Rod Way or substitute this way that is being used, High Hill Road, for Three Rod Way. So it's essentially on all fours with what we have now. I'm just suggesting you may want to take a deep breath and look at the Supreme Court decision to make sure that you understand your options. And you clearly have the option of substituting. I'm just reading it. It's if we give words their plain and ordinary meaning, you substitute. That's all you can do. Or remove buildings, which nobody wants to do. So I'm maybe suggesting to get counsel to look at this and make sure that you understand what your options here are, because this Supreme Court decision also goes on to say that you can't give up the public's right to this Three Rod Highway, and they've again, the decision is very clear, and there are people that want to access the public highway. And for that reason, it may very well be that the Supreme Court in 1893 made no mention of abandonment, which was a remedy at that time. Thank you.
Can I ask why there will be additional legal and survey costs that the town will need to pay?
Because when you do a road abandonment, there are certain legal procedures that you have to go through, and you have to rewrite deeds for properties. Because right now, you've got people that have homes that are on this right-of-way. And there will be both the, Peter Ruggiero has said that there will be additional legal work, as has the surveyor.
Can I ask, what's the benefit to doing it this way versus, is it even a possibility of doing some type of a substitution? Is there a legal?
If you do a substitution, I'm not sure if you've visited the area, but you have a substandard roadway.
That's what I was getting. That's the reason?
Well, that's one of the reasons. The other reason is, as stated before, that there are encroachments on the roadway. You are going to accept a roadway with encroachments and in some respects, deplorable condition.
And under this plan, what's the status of the town services, plowing and all that? I mean,
We do plowing. We are not doing any, we are doing trash collection, as we are throughout all of the streets in that neighborhood.
I just raised this, but would people on the council, everybody feel better if Peter Ruggiero went through this?
I would.
And perhaps at our next meeting, we could ask Mr. Ruggiero to come with some maps. It's just sort of...
I do have maps with me that were the survey that was done, if that would help you tonight, but certainly we want the council to feel comfortable. This is what we've recommended because we've already heard...
it may be the way to go.
Yes.
But it might be helpful, because you've been working on it for, I don't know how many months, but and we have not been privy to those meetings, so it might be helpful to have Mr. Ruggiero.
Madam President, if my memory strikes me as correct, I do believe it's difficult for Mr. Ruggiero to come on our normal council meeting night, and it may need to, the fifth Monday of the month meeting may work more for his schedule, or another night. I know he's just taken over another town, but I just want to let you know before we start scheduling him, it may be difficult for him to make it on our normal schedule.
Why don't we see when he would be available? Why don't we just see when he would be available and plan around it?
Why don't we just check with him as to see what his availability is with a couple of dates, and then we can, the council's schedule fairly well, so if we can do it on that alternate.
We'll email him, and he gets back very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
This is a difficult issue, needless to say. And the street committee is to be commended for staying with it. Wow.
My name is Mr. Carr. For those that you don't know, Sam Carr, Chairman of the Tiverton Harbor and Coastal Waterways Commission. I would just like to mention here that there are a lot of public accesses to the water down in this area, and some are kind of disguised and so forth, and I just want to, I think it's our responsibility, the Harbor and Coastal Waterways Commission, to make sure these accesses to the shore continue. One is right at the corner of High Hill Road and Shore Road. As you turn, the Shards family gave property. Shards family from Middletown gave property out there just recently to give access to the shore there. And as you continue down along Shore Road, on the right-hand side, there's a little area there for where 3 or 4 cars can park that goes right to the shore there. We want that to be maintained. And then as you continue straight ahead, heading down to Almy Creek, there's the Nature Conservancy owns property down there and so forth, and of course there should be access to that, as well as public access all the way to Almy Creek. There's a beach on the right-hand side. Almy Creek is a favorite creek, particularly in the spring, April and May, for the fly fishermen, for striped bass that are coming up after the herring that are run up, and there's a herring run up at the end of Almy Creek that goes into Knockwood Pond. So we want to make sure that these accesses are not interfered with, and I'd be glad to serve on any committee you form
Well, I
to
think
come up with a plan.
insofar as a committee is concerned, the street committee has labored over this matter. And I just, Hannibal kept pointing this out, but it is a public way,
Yes, it is.
and that has not been diminished. A public way, privately owned. So,
Yes.
the matter of access, it seems to me, is recognized, at least in that letter. But we're going to have Mr. Ruggiero here. We certainly invite you to that meeting, whenever it is.
Terrific. I appreciate it. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Saab, 32 Shaw Road. I'd like some clarified for me, if I may. Between,
You always have to come to the microphone and...
I'm Mr. Saab, 32 Shaw Road. I've been here, my family's been here since 59 rather. And Shaw Road has always been in the same area, never been moved. I've spoken with many old timers, 70s and 80s, and that road has always existed in that same spot. The subdivision's been put in with no fault of the residents there and bought properties, and we seem to be getting in front of it. My question to you is, what's the difference between public acceptance and private? It can't be both. It can't be a public way for people to use and private. If you put private in there, somebody's going to put something across that road, which they've already encroached from High Hill to Barbara Street. It's been encroached something fierce and narrowed down the road. There's going to be a nasty accident up there because those people go down there. Some are travelers, old folks out for a Sunday ride, and they stop and they back up between Shaw Road and High Hill, between Barbara Street and High Hill Road. Somebody's going to get hurt. Those private signs should not be there. If it's a public way, then it's a public way. If it's a private way, then it's a private way. Clarify that for me, please.
Well, the concept is that it's a public way owned by a private, and it cannot be...
Who? What private? I don't own it.
I tell you, it usually is, if you want to trace the ownership, whoever subdivided the land, whoever owned the major portion of that land that they subdivided, is technically still the owner of the incipiently dedicated property, which is of no value to him anymore because he's given it up. But until someone else takes ownership, someone has to own the land. So it goes back to who originally had it, is the owner.
Do you know where they're buried?
It doesn't make a difference. It makes no difference, because if you look through title search and so forth, it would be passed to heirs or whoever it is, because it's dedicated for that purpose. When you do that platting for subdivisions, you give up the right to the use of that portion of land to be used for the roads. It's clearly indicated in all of the maps for there that were recorded, and as much as the distance of them, the 40 feet, 30 feet on some of the other roads and so forth. It is not town's land, and that's where I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that the road system is automatically the town's. The town has agreed to accept roads that have been brought up to a standard. We ran into a problem some years ago where people were trying to build on some of those same kind of lots that were divided early 1900s or whatever, were plotted, left into tiny little lots. There was incipiently dedicated land for a road, and we wouldn't issue a building permit unless there was a passable roadway, and we came up with what was a gravel road standard so that at least we could get emergency vehicles to be able to access this property before we issued building permits. So the issues that have existed since before zoning was in place, you know, are still some of our issues, and we're trying to rectify them as we go along. And the right to the maintenance of those roads are by the property owners on the road, although they don't own it. But it still has to be public because it was plotted as a road, and it allowed for the access to people, to everybody to get beyond where that property is.
So somebody should be getting a hold of these people and maintain that road, because now it's a public road and it's got two accesses to the bird sanctuary and to open space. It's got a public way to the beach, and somebody is going to take the responsibility other than the people up there or beside the people up there. But that is never done. Three Rod Way, Neck Road, Bogland Road, Pond Bridge Road, they're all 3 roadways and they're all substandard. But the town has accepted each and every one of those roads. You show me a drainage ditch on either side of them roads, Neck Road, Bogland Road, Pond Bridge Road, and I'll treat you to dinner.
Okay.
But I can show your acceptance by a body for those roads. That's the major
What I'm
difference.
saying is, they're all substandard. They're not to the width where they belong, because they're all 3 roadways. They might be close to 35 feet, or 30 feet, but no more than that.
Listen.
Thank you, dear.
All right, thank you. We're obviously proceeding somewhat cautiously on this, so once Mr. Ruggiero is available, we will meet with him. Now, moving on, Mr. Medeiros.
Just like to see if we can come up with a date for the special election for the Charter Review Commission. We talked about doing it in the spring, and we're coming up obviously in mid-March. I'm not sure what the lead time is that's required to be able to do that. Obviously, this needs time for candidates to submit their candidacies and that type of thing.
Yeah, I think we simply have to make a request to the Board of Canvassers to conduct an election, and they handle the whole thing for us.
We've been holding Board of Canvass because the chair is away. He's coming back the first week of April. He's well aware of it, and we were hoping, since there's only 3 members, that we get them all there. We've been in contact with the Secretary of State. We, in fact, sent our charter and the question and everything up to them to review, and they said we need 50 days to conduct the special election at that point. So hopefully by that meeting in April, the Board of Canvass will be able to come forward with.
Is the intent of this election to have one question on the ballot?
I have no
I think it's the time to review the whole charter.
The question here is about electing a charter review commission, and at which time, which the council, it's by charter, they have to be in place every 5 years or sooner, you know, at the request of the council. I think they can consider more than one question. They have a right to review the entire charter. They do have a term of office as stated in the charter, and they have to complete their work, and the whole idea was to get it so that they could get their work done, so it could be presented by the 2008 election without having to have a special election for charter changes.
So the question would be,
Council's going to want hearings on this after
Yeah.
they come forward and stuff now.
if that early April date works out, we'll have enough time to at least do this
You should.
in June?
Yes, you should, and I won't set the date, they will, but yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Town council, discussion of the waiver process for debt service.
How about the wastewater management? Is that?
Oh my God, Mr. Lindford. We have read through, Mr. Lindford, your request for this program. And this is this was developed by URI?
No, this was, the program itself was developed by Carmody Data Systems of Wisconsin.
Okay, and but it's a memo from the New England On-Site Wastewater Training Center supporting the use of.
Right, exactly.
Does it have an acronym? RIWIS?
Yes, yes. Basically, what is happening is Rhode Island URI is teaming up with Carmody Data Systems to provide a statewide single program that people that are using the system can all get together and use one system. They're working with DEM to get the ISDS database so that can be populated into the program also. It's a very easy program to manipulate so that when we go online with it, it will be very easy for us to target those fields that it has available so that we can use it for our purposes. North Kingston's using it, Charleston's using it. There are a number of different communities that are already using it in the state of Rhode Island, and as a standalone unit, and they are going onto the RIWIS system.
Which option you looking at, John?
Please?
Which one you looking at?
We're looking at the $100 system.
I would much prefer to go with the $100 system as opposed to the, it ends up being about $90, $100. The issue here is that there is the RIWIS system. When you log on to their homepage, there is some very low-key advertising. It's basically, I consider it like a business directory. And that's how it's being funded. That's why it's $100 as opposed to $9,100.
And that's specifically a reason why we brought this, because though there may be a link from our webpage, it's going to go to a somewhat semi-commercial outlet, but Mr. Webster and I and Mr. Lincourt have seen a presentation of this. It is very low-key, but we wanted to make sure you were aware that some people may not like having advertising on there. Some communities it's an issue, some communities it's not. But I can also say that with the budget as tight as it is too, this is a pretty good deal for us.
For $9,000 difference, I'll look at some advertising.
Yes.
Mr. Lincourt,
Yes.
there isn't any licensing fees beyond this $100 as we go forward?
That's it. That's it. As he populates, if you look on page 12 of your packet, as he populates that, all of those boxes underneath the login, it's gonna more than pay for itself. The first couple of years that he is running the system, it will probably cost him money, but he's looking for.
There aren't going to be any licensing fees after this, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000?
No, it's $100. Basically, it's $100 per year is what at the rate now.
Isn't it $99?
Yeah.
But
Well, because that leads me to ask a question. It's now $99, but when the price goes up to $99,000 a year, how are we going to get our information off that computer system because we can't afford the service anymore?
That's a very good question. The data from day one is ours. If we decide next year to go with a Microsoft Access program and not spend the $100, we just take that information and populate our own database.
How do we do that, Mr. Lincoln? How do we get the information off their computers and put it onto
Will
ours?
it export into?
Yes. Yes, it's very, one of the nice things about this program is the ability to export data and the ability to import data. I'll be able to take the assessor's database and populate our database inside this program. So it's going to make it a lot easier for me to start working with the program. I'm not going to have to sit down and enter in every lot that comes online. It'll already be there.
Does this company sell any of the information that's on there to anyone else?
No. The data is ours, and
But anybody can look at it, though. Is that not true? There's no more privacy when it comes to that kind of information.
there will be, anybody will be able to log on and look at some of the information. There will, and that's one of the things that we will set up with them. We will allow certain information to be shown, other information that should be kept private will be kept private.
But also, I think I read in here that anyone who accesses this database can input. They can make changes or whatever, and
No,
that needs
no.
to be controlled.
Well, there's a password.
Anybody, if you are a homeowner in town and you want to see what your next door neighbor is doing, you can get onto the website and see certain information. But in order to change any information, there's a password program that you have to be authorized to go into it. And there are basically two levels of authorization. Service providers, a septic system pumper will be able to go in and input certain information. A designer or an inspector will be able to go in and put in their information.
Okay, but if we have, let's say we've put information in for 5 years or 10 years at the $99 a year rate, and for some reason we need to extract ourselves from that system, is there going to be an easy process to withdraw our data and put it into another computer or privately owned computer or whatever?
All I'll have to do is call up Carmody and say, Carmody, I want our data to be given to us in Excel format. They will run a report and we will get that data. It's just as simple as that.
Okay.
There's been no hiccups with any of these other towns that have been using this program?
No. As a matter of fact, Rhode Island is not the first state that these people have worked in. They started out in the Midwest. They're doing a lot of work down in Florida now, with a lot of the counties down in Florida. And now they're working into Rhode Island also.
Okay. Is there a motion on this?
Make a motion to approve joining the RIWIS network at the $99 option.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? All those abstained? One.
Thank you very much.
Now, discussion of the waiver profits for debt service.
Madam President, James Amarantes, Town Treasurer. Department of Administration, Office of Municipal Affairs, once a year publishes instructions to the local finance officer for applying for relief from the cap. I mentioned at a prior council meeting that last year the letter came from Department of Administration on March 30th. I report to you that I haven't received anything yet for this fiscal year. Nevertheless, I did talk to the author of last year's letter, Jerry Michaud, and asked him about submitting a debt service waiver request for this fiscal year and got general guidance from him. So what I have done is I've put together a letter to the Department of Administration, similar to the one I did last year, which provides the information that they're going to require and ask that they certify a certain amount of debt service that exceeds last year's expenditures plus 5.25%. I did this over the weekend, and I made a few copies. I'll pass them out. And I guess the question after I quickly review it with you, is whether or not the council, and this I put together as a standalone request, that is, it can be submitted as a separate request for relief from the debt service cap, or it could be included as part of a package if the council is contemplating requesting other relief in other areas. So I only have 4 of them. Let me just, I'll start one here. One for the council president, council vice president, and one for the town clerk and former treasurer.
Nancy, would you reproduce those for the rest of us?
You want to go to this now, and I'll take this.
Here are the highlights. And I've got some attachments if you want to peruse them at your leisure, but I provide the total debt service for last year, and this is easily determined by looking at last year's docket, $1,293,150. Multiply that by the factor, 1.0525%, which gives us a permissible cap without a waiver of $1,361,040. $1,361,040. And then I total the debt service for this coming fiscal year, and I'll mention it, but in the same breath I'll mention that it was a lot higher before Louise and I worked on reducing the debt service for the coming fiscal year on the $10.7 million bond for the new elementary school. And the debt service that will appear on the docket for fiscal '08 is $2,254,257. And that is broken down. There are 5 components to debt service for this coming fiscal year, and I show them with the exception of the band, which really doesn't have a debt service schedule. That's simply paying off a $12 million band, which will cost the town $268,000. The other 4 elements of the 5 elements in this coming fiscal year's debt service are all bond issues, and those numbers are as shown on the debt service schedules, which are attached as attachment C, D, E, and F. So, in summary, we will exceed the permissible cap by $893,000, $893,217, $893,217, and that is the amount of money that we will seek relief on if the council is inclined to go forward and ask. And the language that's used in the statute is certify. In other words, this excess has to be certified by Department of Administration, and that's what I say in the cover letter. And they send a letter back to us saying, yes, it's certified, you may exceed by that amount, $893,217. So having said all that, I guess my question is, what's the council's pleasure? Questions, and then do we want to, I would not send this in without the council's assent. I'll be glad to answer any questions after you've had a chance to look at this. Thank you.
Well, I think if we don't ask for that waiver, and we use the surplus to cover it, we are going to be looking at substantial layoffs. There's no way. Because our 5, what we have to appropriate this year as permitted is $1,000,003.
That's correct.
382?
$1,382,581.
Yes. So, and that is to be shared between the school department and the town. That's our cap. absent a waiver. So, you know, at the very least, we do have 10% increase in insurance costs of Blue Cross. So I think on the debt service, we do need to apply for a waiver so that at least we have the $1.3 million that can be added to the tax levy. Otherwise, we will be in the soup.
Oh, that's my recommendation. I don't think it's premature. I don't think the instructional letter that's forthcoming from Department of Administration is going to contain many submittal changes. So I'm for submitting this. This gives us the authority to exceed. Some miracle may happen and we don't have to, but nevertheless, we will have authority to exceed by the 893-217 for debt service. So unless you see some flaw with the cover letter, and if you want to go ahead and do it, then I'm perfectly willing to put it in tomorrow's mail. And if they need additional information, I'll just provide it. But I think they have enough information there to see that this is a genuine number and how I developed the 893-217. It's fairly straightforward, but it's really a council call. I don't know if you're thinking of, there are other areas now under the revised statute which permits you to seek relief in more areas than you could a year ago. I don't know if you're contemplating that.
I don't think we're eligible, Madam President, for any of those.
That's a tough hoop to jump through.
Right. I don't think one, we're eligible to do it. And there may be more areas, but some of those, we have to exceed our expense by 15%, not less.
It's 15.75.
I would say that we would take this advantage here.
Yes, I think.
Move forward with this issue.
Right.
Now, what about the school department? Were they, the school department?
I'm sorry.
The school department, were they going to do, were they going to ask for a waiver as well?
On what?
They needed a waiver, they needed a waiver, they thought originally for health care, because they had projected health care at 17 to 18%. It's right now 10.8%, 10.8%, our joint experience rating, so that's what we're going to be seeing as a Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance rate, so they no longer need it. They won't, let's put it this way, they no longer need it, they no longer qualify for it, is the best way of putting it.
I don't think there's any, at this point, I don't think there's any basis for us or the school committee to seek any additional. The school bond issue obviously is jacked up our issues.
Motion to authorize the treasurer to send information to the Department of Administration for the possible waiver on the debt service cap.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll do it tomorrow.
Good, Jim. Now, down to more fun is the budget.
Madam President and Council, I gave you, I guess, two options. One was to get the budget to roughly 5.25%, which I gave you a copy a few days ago. However, we still didn't have the health care insurance rate at that time, which I'm recommending, and I'm still working on the final number. That's on page 7, the one that says 5.2535. You would still have to add to that number probably about $65,000, $50,000 to $65,000. I've got to go back and recalculate because I've put people in, put people out. There is another change on this on page 1 under clerical staff, full-time under my office. That number of $40,600 should be reduced to $37,831. I had forgotten, I was originally planning on trying to take the administrative assistant in my office to add additional hours. I've taken that out. And talking with Mr. Amarantes, who I guess is left already, we're going to propose under his page, for his office, under page 5, where it says accounting consultant Gatsby, where he had 10,000, to reduce that to 1,000 and try to actually get the RFP out this year for Gatsby 43 and 45, and try to forward fund it in this year for it to take effect the following year as a potential savings. That is the worst case. That cuts out, to remind everybody, no salary, no new position increases. It would remove the full-time, from part-time to full-time in the code enforcement. It would remove the new inspector. It would take the number of hours that the fire billing clerk and secretary reduced back to 32.5 from the original proposed 40. It would do away with the finance officer position and still maintain a part-time treasurer. It would go through, it would do some reductions in some of your Social Security because of some reduction in positions. It would reduce paving down to $125,000, which is street paving, which is pothole repairs plus street paving. It's not just paving new streets. It would go through the capital expense like Sherman went through Atlanta, and it would be it would eliminate the snowplow and frame sander, the 1-ton roller. It would reduce putting aside money for a rescue vehicle. It would take take the Boulder Marsh grant money and zero it out. It would also zero out everything that the Recreation Commission asked for to get you somewhere in that ballpark. And there still may have to be additional cuts with the health care, but I don't know if significant. It would mean at this point that there would be no layoffs, or maybe one layoff at that worst case scenario. But I mean, it would just, we'd be stuck in a rut. I mean, we wouldn't be paving, we wouldn't be maintaining buildings to the degree that we need to start maintaining.
The carryover funds for paving.
There is in the drainage account, there is $104,000, I believe, in that account. Some of that money could obviously be carried over, but we've always planned, I guess, or has been planned by the council to use some of that money to do some repairs down in the Robert Gray area. It's not going to fix everything, but do some repairs. So far, we've been very fortunate. We've had a mild winter. As you know, we still have a $52,000 hole in our trash collection, though the DPW budget is in much better condition than we had hoped for because of the mild winter. And we're looking at trying to spend some of that and maybe direct some more of that money into paving.
Winter's not over yet.
I know. I recognize I've got at least another 30 to 45 days.
As we have been reminded in the past.
But I just, when we have these nice warm days, I'm a man of hope.
We are. Well,
now, the other budget, which I did submit to you over the weekend as part of your council packet, and pointed out that I think in fairness, we need to recognize that there's been some policy decisions. In all fairness to the town, the school department, and I'm not trying to, and I don't like the concept of pitting each other off, because I think we both have missions that we need to accomplish. They are getting additional state revenue funding as it appears. I'm not saying that may not disappear after the governor's budget gets through the legislature, but I think they're going to be hard pressed to cut that. But we've taken on-site wastewater management, which is roughly $16,000. It looks like we're going to be taking over the cost for the school resource officer, and no matter which arm, it's a benefit to both sides. And this year alone, that's going to be $23,000, almost $24,000, and that's just going to go up. Obviously, policy decisions on trash pickup, which are good policy decisions, but they do have an impact on the town budget. Now, talking with the budget committee, I know they're looking forward to at least a relatively final version of what we're proposing. I'd still like to go forward with the budget which I gave you, which is reflecting some of some of these costs that I spoke about tonight, and take it in at 7.7% and let us continue to work the number and see where we are. I am talking with the unions, in particular on attrition, because we do know there may be some attrition coming, and eliminate positions that way versus out-and-out layoffs, and maybe maneuvering staff in town government for that. With really the only new position being created would be the code enforcement officer, because you've had budgeted since last year a finance officer, and depending on which direction that goes in terms of the response of the ad, we could be saving another $15,000.
Well, your budget is still $300,000 over the 5.25, as I looked at it over the
It's
weekend.
roughly 300,000.
Right.
308,000.
I mean, it actually has come down another 3,000. I'm counting every $1,000 every time we.
I think we have to hit, and I think the budget committee is going to say, listen, we're not going to go beyond the 5.25. And so we might as well bite the bullet and say, some of the things that we've talked about, that we desire, that we want, may have to be deferred. If legislation gets passed that clarifies whether we can take a growth factor in, I think that's fine, but I feel very uncomfortable going with something in excess of that and even adding people when we know that there's going to be layoffs in the school department.
Well, and as I said, I'm not so sure when I say add, the number is still not going to even or decline based on attrition. I mean, the goal is to move staff, and working with the union, move staff to where we need them versus where we don't need them. And if we're looking at raising building fees, for instance, as a manager and someone who we're in the customer service business, I find it very difficult to raise fees and not give some service back in return.
Well, of course, that was Jay Edwards' point, but you're talking about code enforcer. You're not, I don't think we are in the same position with our building department as with delays that other communities are experiencing. And, I mean, I think it would be nice to have everything. But I think going before the townspeople and saying, our budget is over this, I don't think we'll get it through the budget committee, period. And I think we may have to step back and defer some of the things that all of us would like to see and have.
I'd like to make a motion to submit the 5.25 budget to the budget committee.
Second.
I'll second it, yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Roseanne?
Excuse me, the podium's a little too high for me. I'm not here looking for any money, but I'm looking for a little bit of a clarification. I'm sorry, Glenn. On this, a line item for the planning board is such, as you know.
It is going to be a separate line item, just taking out existing money from one line to the other is going to be given to the planning board like I emailed you.
Okay.
You will have
I think it's an oversight.
$2,000.
I apologize for not being here last Mondays. I thought it was for revenue only. I didn't realize it was budget. I would have picked it up then, but. it's
No,
just an
we've known,
oversight.
it's just a matter of reformatting it, and it's a lot of effort to reformat, but it will be reformatted for the Budget Committee.
Just like the
just-
zoning board of review.
Right, just so you know, the planning board has specifically asked out of the consultant's fee, that $2,000 be allocated directly to them. Same amount of money, I think we had 4,000 in there, so it's going to be split 2,000, 2,000 to, so that if the planning board wants to do something, that they feel that they've got some money to spend, and I don't think that's a major issue, so if I don't make sure everybody understands that.
Okay. So you're going to put it back to 4,000?
No, I'm going to split, I'm going to put a separate line item for the planning board, under the planning board, $2 in consultant.
I would move the
engineering.
question.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. This is the 5.25 budget.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Choice.
I mean, if we get some legislation, we may be able to work, go back, but I don't think so. Okay, folks, moving on. Mr. Webster.
Madam President, before you move on, I would like to ask one thing. And I don't know what the intent of the council is on this, and I guess I'm going to ask for some correction. I'm hearing the desire to stay at 5.25, and as I still try to struggle to continue to work some budget magic between now and the financial town meeting, is the philosophy to stay just simply at 5.25, and that if we can, through attrition, move some people around and stay at the 5.25, is that the number that I'm hearing from you?
That's the number we're hearing from the state, 5.2.
And I'm just,
So no matter what you do internally,
so what I just want to know is that I continue to try to work and deal with staffing and trying to make sure we have the materials to do the job. Is you want 5.25 no matter what, but as long as we can continue to do what we can do in terms of potentially reducing staff. I don't want anybody to walk away, any of our staff to walk away and think that this issue has been resolved on the staffing.
Well, obviously, we have union contracts, and those would have to be, but I think the 5.25 is what the council said it was.
I think what we need to do at the financial town meeting is what we've done in the last 2 years, is to get the acceptance and recognition that with a tight budget, that some latitude, should be given to, the council in moving of some funds, when and if necessary. And keep the restriction away that was there before about transferring between departments, so that we are capable of getting accomplished whatever it is we need to. In other words, if we have a position open through attrition and create some money in a department, it could be moved somewhere else so that some other issues can be taken care of for us, but we're going to stay within the...
Is there any way we can put forward a budget that has a gross number that the voters will vote on, as opposed to having compartmentalized and departmentalized? So we have the ability to move money around as necessary.
I think you just do it by making sure the resolution that restricts you from transferring money between departments and so forth isn't there. And in the last 2 years, we've had that removed. The Budget Committee did not insist upon having that. And I think in the discussions with the Budget Committee, you should let them know that the council would like to see that, be retained, giving us the flexibility in moving some funds so that we can accomplish the necessary things under the limited amount of dollars.
Even under the 525, you've identified 67,000, that we're going to have to, have to figure out how to deal with that. So it's going to be extremely tight. We all know that. That's what we live with. Okay?
Okay.
Okay for now. Okay, Mr. Webster.
Evening again. You have a recommendation before you. We did open the statements of qualifications and price. Actually, we opened just the statements of qualifications on March 1st. After review of those qualifications, we find that all three firms were qualified. Rather than try to determine who is the most qualified firm, which is a normal process, we did look at the price proposals. As you note in the recommendation, what we feel is the lowest price proposal was submitted by Beta Group, based mainly on their rate, their daily rate, to complete both tasks 1 and 2. This is for the necessary GPS work to locate all of our outfalls, stormwater outfalls in the affected area of stormwater 2. And it is also to take samples and test the waters from those outfalls where we find there is a flow of water. This has to be done once in the high water table season, which will be before April 30 of this year, and another time, which will be in the dry season, which will be after July 1st up to October 31st. Therefore, I'm asking approval to award this work to Beta Group at the stated prices. We do have money in the 553813 account, minus that money that was spent for the Stormwater 2 annual report, which we paid to, will be paying to ESS. We also have, I believe, about $2,400 that was carried forward in the same account last year to cover this work.
Madam President, I move the adoption of the recommendation of the Director of Public Works.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Town Administrator.
Madam President, first of all, just as, since we're talking about money tonight, I guess this is rather important. Fourth quarter taxes are due April the 1st. To avoid penalties, taxes must be paid no later than April the 10th. We will be open on Saturday, March 31st from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for additional taxes. This is one of our slow times. The other Saturday was Easter weekend, and I chose not to open up the town offices for Easter weekend. But we have already put notice out on this on our website, and we are in the process of getting ready to, it's been posted around town. If you came in, you saw it on the town window this evening, and we'll be putting out notices. The other issue is the town audit is up on the website and has been up, so if anybody wants to see it, if anybody wants to, it's all 100 and some pages. And I know that Mr. Boland last time brought up the issue of the AARP and tax training. That has been in the local newspaper and is also up on the website that they can click on, so that has been followed up. A lot of issue was asked on where we are on a couple of things. I've talked with, Sam Shamoon is still moving along. One of the difficulties on drafting this impact fee is really the determination of how much is needed based on growth and how much can be charged. And we've finally gotten some information from the schools based on growth. We're still working on information on the library, what is based on growth versus what is actual need to serve the actual population. Chris Spencer is working on that. And we're also trying to make a determination of another major building that we are looking at is possibly a new fire station. The question is how much is that due to growth versus just need and updating existing facilities. The other issue is whether we go with one station or two stations, and that's the reason why we bought software this year, so that it'd be easier to track, where the calls are coming from, because we couldn't do that before unless we did it manually. So we are working on that. So that should be coming to you shortly with the ordinance, I believe, to address, at least for the school construction impact fee. I know that Andy's working on that.
Yeah, I've talked to Sam about it, and, I mean, if we can get the information from the school department, and Mr. Spencer is providing the information, the urgency is to get at least an ordinance for an impact fee on the schools in place before we go forward with the permanent bond issue, because otherwise we might not be able to include that in the impact fee at all.
Which is August.
Right. Well, we're working on it sooner, so I would expect that there would first be an impact fee ordinance that would only have a school component, and then we'd come back to amend it at a later time to include the fire station and other elements, library and so forth, other elements in the impact fee as we're able to get that data. So I think it'll be before August. Well, I know it'll be before August. I hope it'll be well before August that we're hearing the impact fee on the schools.
Okay.
We're also, instead of just a physical improvement plan in terms of buildings, we're also working on, we're making two capital plans. One is a vehicle capital plan in terms of replacing of vehicles and fire trucks. You know, and obviously, somewhere along the line, as I know that it's going to get worse before it gets better in terms of the reductions, but we're looking at hundreds, if not millions of dollars in terms of what needs to be addressed in the town. And hopefully this will give the voters and the citizens a clearer understanding. This is not a wish list. This is really a list to provide municipal services. The other big issue on that item, and Andy is also working on this, is in regards to the interceptor line and the ownership of the interceptor line. Andy has been given a memorandum of understanding to be reviewed to address one of the phases of this is the flow meter between us and Fall River, because of problems with their pipe is causing a backflow occasionally into our pipe, a surge into our pipe. The other issue is, we're trying to work out, and since we resolved the other recent lawsuit with New England Property Holdings and with some of the same players, is to deal with the issue of the 1,500 feet of pipe that is relatively flat and has almost no pitch to it, though the pitch there was very nominal. There is $213,000. The issue and discussion back and forth on this is in the contaminated area, and even though there's fresh dirt around, obviously it's going to be quite a job getting the pipe out of the ground and trying to get it properly elevated for grade. And I know, talking with Mr. Ross and Mr. Casey, they would like to get this issue resolved, but they would want to get the flow meter issue addressed first. So Andy's, I know, working on that. We got quite a list.
Before August, Mr. Tice?
I don't know about that one.
But there is, just so you know, there is $213,000 in retainage fee that had actually dropped down. To the credit of the treasurer, he got the number back up, and we're looking at trying to increase it some more through interest, so that we'll have some more money. We don't have a good number what it's going to cost to get this pipe out. Obviously, some of it is reusable. The other issue is there is some problems with the manholes and how they were installed originally, and that's another problem.
When you talk about there's $200 and some thousand left in the bond, why should that even be a factor in this? These are a job that was done, it wasn't done to the specifications and to the standard that it was supposed to be done to, so it should be the contractor's liability to correct it. It's one of the reasons we don't take the acceptance of a sewer line or a project that's put in, and we have to make sure it performs to the standard for a year before we accept. And this has never performed to the standard, so why should we be on the hook in terms of the $200,000 that was left for the bond to make the corrections?
Because it also appears that our engineer signed off on it, the original installation.
And our engineer was whom?
Berger.
So?
Berger, I believe.
Berger.
Huh, doesn't his company have insurance or liability for, you know, I mean, if, errors and omissions. I mean, if he did something that wasn't correct, and, you know, he should carry, I mean, that's why we hired somebody.
Generally, contracts like that also have a clause in there that no matter what, if you still install something that is substandard, just because it has been accepted doesn't mean you can't go back after the fact.
Wouldn't the correction of the pitch of the pipe, though, take care of the meter? Why does the meter issue exist, and why is it going to be tackled first?
Because the problem with how the pipe is laid on the other side of the state line, which is Fall River's problem.
What happened?
In other words, before we entered into a project, we didn't check their line on their side to see what the issues might be.
Far of his elevations was not correct.
Right.
Far of his elevations accordingly said they were at one elevation, and when they finally did it, far of his elevation was not correct.
Was it too high? Is that the idea?
No, I don't know if it was that we flattened our pipe out. It was just, you know, I don't think it was done to flatten out. I mean, there's no indication. I just think the grade was so...
Two separate issues.
Right.
Two separate issues.
They just have a particular situation. When they run that situation, it'll send, instead of, the water won't go through the pipe to where it's supposed to go, goes back into ours. So the meter reads twice.
Yeah.
Swishes back and forth.
Multiple readings.
Multiple bills.
Yes, I will be looking into it, and, you know, if it appears that we need to sue someone, I'll be bringing the appropriate recommendation to you.
Thank you.
Okay, because that's something that we really do need to resolve before Bourne Mill is done, as pointed out, before we get, you know, more...
I mean, I know they're hoping that a lot of this problem is rectified by flow in the line. Because, you know, I mean, obviously with the minimal amount of flow and the minimal pitch, you know, they get a buildup in the pipe. If they get enough flow through the pipe, they'll get a lot less buildup through the minimum, you know, and so that the more that comes online, and I don't know if they were thinking that the quicker we got this thing going, you know, the easier it was going to be to, you know, to get away with it, but...
I believe it's this section of the pipe that can carry up to 3 million gallons a day through that section of the pipe. And overall, between, you know, we have two connections, as I recall, in the Fall River, that section and another section up in the northern part of the town also. We're only taking through an average of 100,000 gallons a day. I mean, it's nothing.
No, you're right. That we insisted that the line be put there to handle North Tiverton, and you're handling Starwood. So you're not handling, you know, I mean, there's a lot of streets that flow from Main Road down that eventually would tie in and create that, the flow, and the pipe was put in for that kind of flow.
And
if it was at that flow, half of these issues wouldn't be the issue, because they wouldn't have enough force from anything they were sending us at the other end to send water back through the line.
And this was the last section of the pipe installed too, which I think has created some problems. But
Well, there was a time problem because of the coastal thing and everything else, so they actually started in the middle because they only had a month to get that section of line in down by...
It's a combination of errors.
You heard Mr. Tite say he was going to look into this and he would take care of it.
All right.
By August.
Into it and sue if
He said something by August, right? I heard him say August.
Do you have anything else?
No, Madam President.
Okay. Anything from the council, comments, questions, before we go to the town solicitor? Town solicitor?
Okay, we've got a couple of things here, old and new. First, in the something old thing, just to catch up. This was a question that's been around for a while, I gather, the question of taxation of the Portsmouth Water and Fire District. And I gather this did not make your packet. You're seeing it today, but it's actually been around for a while, and I just wanted to finalize it. Basically, our research indicates that the exemption of these water and fire districts are based on the specific enabling legislation of each district. Some have it, some don't. Some have broad exemptions, some have narrow exemptions. And Portsmouth's district has a pretty clear exemption for any of its property which is being used for its water distribution services. So I have recommended that we cease taxing their facilities and abate for the last 3 years, the 3 years being the standard in the law. It's the limit of what we can collect, and therefore the limit of what we would abate. And I expect that, now, I know Mr. Roberts had it at one point. I'm not sure if we didn't actually put that, it hasn't been before the council yet, the abatement, right? So that would be coming up in the future, the abatement issue.
How much did we collect already?
I would refer to Mr. Robert the question of the money. I don't think it's a very large amount of money. It's on some small property with pumping stations and pipes.
I'm only going by my memory at this point, so don't hold me to the number, but it's going to be somewhere around $10,000.
What's that?
Total.
10,000 in total
Is that the abatement?
for the 3 years.
For the 3 years, but my understanding is they haven't been paying the tax for a lot of years, and so we're gonna have a lot of bookwork to clean up, because it's,
It's going to come as an uncollected.
well, yeah, it's gonna give us an uncollectible for the rest of the years that they've never paid it.
That's entirely correct.
Right, we will have to.
I mean, what are we abating? We're abating something they never paid?
Well, if they haven't paid, then they won't be,
Well, it's on the
they will
tax
be
roll.
off.
It's on the roll. You're gonna take off the roll for the last 3 years and leave the uncollectible for the 7 before that.
Put it up on tax sale.
Yeah, sell the land. Now, when you talk about the exemption, though, but when you talk about they have a tax exemption for their property and so forth, it's not limited to the district? I mean, don't they have a geographic district which constitutes
No, they're exempt from all taxes and all taxes and assessments for state, town, or district purposes. It doesn't limit it to property within the town of Portsmouth. It says all, and I think in this case it means all.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm wondering, because,
Seek to amend their legislation, except for the town of Tiverton.
Well,
Let Amy Rice and,
What are we going to do with the dead horse we're beating?
Oh, I just find that, I don't disagree with you, Madam President, that maybe we should ask for that, because if you want to run an entity within your town and make it exempt from tax purposes within your town, that's fine. But you want to extend a line to wherever you want to extend it and say you're exempt from paying taxes to somebody else where you run that line? I mean, we just might have to look at that, because, like I say, we're not talking about,
You want to put that in form of a motion, Mr.?
well, I mean, consider it, but I have to give it some consideration. How much are they paying per tax per year? Yeah.
why don't we perhaps just ask our representatives if,
Take a look at that.
yeah, okay, they might laugh, but you can ask.
And could come back to bite us.
Yes, they might.
Could come back to bite us.
Okay,
All right,
keep
so
going.
I just wanted you to be aware of that, and it'll be, the final accounting will be coming before you at some point in the future. Next is the question on the report on proposed zoning amendments. As you'll recall, the council had referred to the planning board the question of amendments to the zoning map to conform with the update to the 5-year update to the comprehensive plan. And the planning board has been working on it, and in fact, I attended the recent planning board meeting where they went through with it, and Mr. Spencer and I now are delegated with the task of drafting up a formal resolution of the planning board to the town council with findings of consistency and so forth. And we would hope that that would go before the planning board at their meeting in early April and get to you in April, and at that point be set for a public hearing. Now, the next question is about notice and advertisement. This is going to involve a lot. I think Nancy had given to you in your materials a copy of a map that the town of Middletown did. Just by way of example, these are the kind of maps that are currently being done in-house for Tiverton, for this stuff, hand-drawn maps. And we're going to have to provide the 200-foot radius around it. So I think there's going to be some costs with the maps. I understand that there is someone that the town uses regularly for its mapping services. And also, vis-à-vis the notice, we're going to have to, provide notice by certified mail. Because we have such a large area, 500-foot radius is going to be a lot of notice. Plus, we're going to have just getting those names within the 500-foot radius. We want to make sure that we obviously do that correct. And, I would recommending that we'd be hiring someone. We don't need a full-scale title search, but we need someone, a paralegal title search type person, I think, to run down. I think it's beyond the time that the clerk's office is going to have it. The planning board doesn't have the staff to do it. So I think there's going to need to be some money allocated for those costs in order to do it right, as well as the actual, I'm not sure that the clerk can report at a later time whether there's enough money in the advertising budget for the actual ads themselves, but just preparing for it is going to cost some money, and I wanted to give you the heads up. I think what we will try to do is give you an estimate of that figure when we come back with the actual proposed amendments. I don't have that figure now, but I wanted to give you the warning now.
Thank you.
That this I would think would be probably an appropriate use of council contingency funds, but it's up to you to decide where it comes from.
That's easy for you to say, Mr. Tice.
Or the legal fund, or...
But I'm sure we'll have to find the money. Planning board always has some in their stash.
How about a silent auction? Are we near any of the borders of our surrounding towns so that they're going to get involved and needing to be noticed and so forth? Off the top of your head.
I don't think
No?
so, no.
The reason it's so large is because of the open space.
Okay.
Right,
that's
the open
good.
space areas are large and pick up a lot of areas, so.
Okay, we're warned.
Third item is fees. We were talking about scheduling. As you'll recall, you previously passed an ordinance to remove the fees from the Code of Ordinances and to do it by resolution on an annual basis. So you don't have to have the 21 days notice now for an ordinance, but there still should be a public hearing for the actual fees. And I'm not sure whether, well, in fact, I am sure that I think March 26th is too ambitious to do this, but perhaps for the next one. What you have communication from Mr. Steckman about some proposed fee increases, and you also have a spreadsheet that was created by my office. This is going through the code. This tells you everywhere in the code, and we might have missed something, in which case I'd be happy to be corrected, but every place that we could find in the code for a particular fee or fine, and what it is currently, and then you'll notice there's a blank column on the right for the proposed fee. You want to keep these the same, you want to raise it, and what we hope to do is actually put all of this in this sort of form, including the ones that Mr. Seckman has given you, and the ones that you've been provided by Mr. Gareth Eames for his fees, and put that all together for you. But
And ultimately adopt it as, in this format.
adopt it, well, yes. And then you could have it, then it'd be easy to go forward year by year to have it.
You could tweak it year by year.
That's correct, which is, it's exactly the purpose. You could review it as part of your budget process, so you could review it, and you wouldn't need that 21-day notice and advertising. You just need a public hearing advertised once before you actually did it. So that is our intent. But I don't think we're set yet for the 26th. I think one of the things that needs to be done is getting the input as to the last line of the column. I don't regard that at all as my charge. That's a real policy thing as to what numbers. I don't know whether you want to do a workshop or you want to just have individual council members, have everybody fill it out, get it back and collate it. I'll just have Glenn come up with the numbers and review that. I wanted to put it before you, how you want to do it.
As I recall talking with Nancy, some of these fees are set by state law, and that's going to create a problem. The other fee we've already talked about is entertainment licenses, looking at the victual increases, but even though if you increase the victualling fee, you doubled it, I think it only brings you another $1,400 in. It's not, none of these numbers are gonna be, you know, save the town budget type of numbers. I mean, it's just gonna be,
These are not revenue raised, this is not a revenue raising mechanism so much as it's a mechanism to allow you to look at it regularly and look at it in one whole system instead of piecemeal. And two, to look at what the cost of these services are and the value of the services and charge an appropriately fair amount for the value of what you're delivering as far as the services are licensed. And some of these actually, as I noted, are actually even fines for violations, you know, so you may never get any money in on them particularly, but just to look at what's appropriate.
But to answer your question as to who's going to fill in the blanks, I would despair of having 7 council members come up with proposed fees. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think I knew that when I suggested that, but I didn't want to put every alternative before you.
All right.
Glenn and I work on at least some proposals.
Excellent. That was sort of where it should go.
come back from vacation.
Okay, now we're ready for executive session, I
Madam
believe.
President, before we go to that, I missed one of my notes. And it didn't get on the agenda, but you had asked me to draft a letter. I emailed you a letter, another version, which is going to the Commission on Naturally Occurring Arsenic in the Soil. That is the commission that is going to be concerned with the resolution from Middletown. I copied one of the council members said, well, we're supposed to have a resolution with this, so I put a resolution on the back, attached it. If there's any problems, do you have any problems with sending that off as the way it is, based on what your comments were the other night? I mean, the resolution.
I don't, as long as I don't. Here we go.
That resolution reflects your vote and with the letter. So we will
Okay.
put this on the appropriate letterhead and get it off.
Very good.
Okay, we are at the moment of our executive session.
Motion to enter into executive session under 42465A1, discussion of personnel, police chief notice sent.
Second?
All those in favor of that motion, raise your hand.
To remain in executive session under 42465A2 litigation.
All those in favor of that motion, raise your hand. We are in executive